The void stares back. The credits are rolling, the mics are recording. Gaze into the void with your hosts, Josh and Joey, as they discuss thoughts and questions surrounding visual, written, and interactive media steeped in cosmic horror.
Hello!
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Void Stares Back.
Yeah, I'm Joey,
I'm Josh.
and we have a guest with us today.
Yeah, our buddy.
Introduce yourself.
Who am I?
He's a friend of the show.
Hello, I'm friend show.
Friend show.
Friend show.
He's called Skylar.
Yeah, this is our buddy Skylar. We just got finished watching The Thing. John
Thing.
Carpenter's The Thing from 1982.
So if you haven't watched it or you want to
Four?
refresh,
4.
some 1980 time. So if you haven't watched it or you want to refresh, we're about to spoil the crap out of it. We're going
Yes.
to talk unfiltered about the whole thing.
Yep.
These two friends have seen it before, I'm sure many a time. Today was my first viewing.
Yeah, we just introduced Joey.
Which is
this was
the
one of the
whole
movies
process
that
of
kind
the
of
show.
got...
Yeah.
this movie kind of got the show rolling in a sense. Like, it was one of the things I really
It
wanted
was the
him to
first on
see.
the list after we talked about it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we just didn't watch it first.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
We just decided to watch other stuff, so...
Well, it's nice to like have other stuff try and live up to this, standard, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Because our first one was Annihilation,
Yes.
and I love the shit out of that movie. Have you seen Annihilation?
No.
No.
I haven't
You
seen
will.
a lot of things.
Sure.
So just automatically assume that all things that you're going to ask, I'm just going to respond in the
Never heard of
negative.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's really good.
It's very good.
Really good.
Great. All I know is that Natalie Portman's in it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's also true.
And I like her.
Yeah.
So,
I think you would have an appreciation for that film.
okay.
So,
Where do we want to start? General thoughts?
yeah, what are your?
me, I
I want
guess-
to know what your general thoughts are after I've hyped
What
this movie
estimated
up.
what estimated number viewing are each of you on? Obviously, estimate the crap out of it because I'm sure yours is crazy.
Oh, mine's at least somewhere between 30 and 50.
What?
This kid like has it on.
I'm not
when he's
joking.
Not, like,
yeah,
directly watching it.
I've
Sometimes
seen this
too,
movie
so.
at least 30 times at this point.
It's his favorite movie.
Jesus. I was going to just say like 10, and I was like, is that even true? Like, that seemed too high.
Yeah,
no,
overestimated
It's not
for sure.
30,
Yeah.
and it's surely not 50 for me.
So 50 plus views.
Yeah, probably not that quite that
yeah.
high, but honestly around
A
the
lot,
30
though.
range. Yeah.
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 Okay, cool. I liked it a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
Excellent.
Write this down.
Yeah.
Joey liked something that we liked.
I'm waving my finger.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen that often, I guess. So.
Well, that's the joke, so I just kind of go
You'd be
with it.
surprised, movie-wise, things that we've watched, you've been generally positive on.
Just
to
wait,
some- to
just
some
wait till we
degree.
run out of the big hits.
Yeah,
and
I
we
guess
start
that's
watching
true.
the
All the
B tier shit, and then
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's garbage.
Yeah.
Because we've watched one of those so far, and I was not
Yeah.
very happy, and we continue to joke about it every episode. But
Which is that.
but no, yeah, this
We
was
watched a
great.
movie called The Void, which is actually an homage to The Thing.
Isn't that the one you said that I should watch?
Yes, yeah, because it's got
It's
the...
really campy, and
It does. It pays homage to all of the body horror films from the 80s, like the B movies and stuff, but it very much references like things that this movie does, but just in a modern setting, and all the effects are practical. And it takes
I'm imagining
one
much
more
more.
step towards the cosmic horror realm.
Okay.
It's also got like tiny ass budget comparatively.
Super small. It was
so-
made by 2 guys. I mean, not including the acting crew, but like 2 dudes wrote, directed, did a lot of the editing, all that kind of stuff. They had a really small budget, but they did all their effects in practical and stuff, and those are actually really good. But
except for the end.
yeah, the very
There's
end.
some- there's a couple
one or
of
two
moments where
scenes
it
in there
isn't
where
practical.
where there's computer stuff, but like
Yeah.
I mean all the body horror stuff.
Yeah.
Was all done.
I was
in
going to say,
practical.
there's a couple parts in here where you can definitely tell it's not a practical effect.
Right, yeah, but that was one of the big callings for this. Even this day, why it stands up so well is that.
And I do want
all
to
those.
bookmark that thought. I want to talk about those shots.
Okay,
But
Sure.
but yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool.
All right.
Any other thoughts for your like X time viewing it that stuck out, or are you still?
I have some
still love
like
it
plot
in the
point,
same way?
like very minor plot things that like just now are starting to pop up. Like,
Well, you're analyzing
But,
it now differently
yeah.
than just watching it.
but and that it's not so much towards the general discussions that we have on this cast, but like I'll talk about them when they pop up. It's more just like that doesn't really make sense. So, but we
there are a few of those moments where
Yeah.
like when you've seen it for enough times, you're able to kind of pick it apart better. Where you're like, wait, that's
not how physics works, or that's
Right.
not how
Yeah,
But
but like your initial viewing of movies like. I don't want to say the word caliber, but like movies that like really suck you in like this, or like Dark Knight, like there's that movie has things in it where when you've seen it enough times, you're able to analyze it more so than just kind of watch it for pleasure.
Yeah.
You just do that naturally.
Yeah.
And there's some things in that movie where I'm just like, ooh, that's not.
Yeah, because you start off and you diminish how much suspension of disbelief you come into it with.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in a movie that's quote like gripping, like you say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's way easier to
But
do.
you're- but
when
because-
just locked into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When your initial viewing of something that you really enjoy, like you're able to say, "Yeah, I'm having fun, whatever," and then even though after the fact you can look at it and be like, "That's not.
Life
that's
slowly
not.
takes
I'm not
over,
okay
and
with
you
that."
become slowly more jaded. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still enjoy the movie for what it is because you love it in spite of that anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Any other thoughts about the movie other than the plot stuff for you?
there was like one line in that movie where like I kind of realized it was a double entendre for the first time ever.
Oh, which
What line?
So I have a guess, but I wanna hear
Okay,
what
so
you think.
it's the part where MacReady's like speaking to the group as he does throughout the course of the film. He's just like, I'm the parent here, and
yeah.
I'm the captain now.
yeah, basically he has one of those moments, and he's speaking about the thing and how it's vulnerable out in the open, but the line goes something to the effect of once it takes us all over, it has no more enemies, and then it's won. Like when
Then
you
it's
initially
won,
hear that,
nice.
you're like, oh, it won
Yeah.
the battle. but-
W.
right, yeah, which is how I always,
W-O-N. That's what
and
I heard when
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything of it, but then when, for whatever reason, like when I heard it this time, I was like, oh, wait a second,
Yeah.
like he actually means like, well, it could also be taken as in like, oh, we are all one because
Yes.
we've all been
Yeah.
taken over by it.
And I think that's
wanna-
an important point we can circle back on too.
Yes, I want to talk
For
about
another
we've
reason,
had a conversation
double
about
layer.
its knowledge of itself.
yeah.
We've had that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
get
yeah,
into
Exactly.
that. So
For sure. Yeah, before we get into the actual nitty gritty, let's talk about movie stuff. The
Yeah,
cinematography,
we usually do that
acting,
Yep.
dialogue, that sort of stuff. I actually love the way this is shot because it's super unique and it set the tone before, like during the opening credits when it's just black and white.
yeah,
It showed you and at first I was like, are we really doing like an edit after every name?
right.
It was like a transitional edit after every name in the
Yes.
beginning.
Yeah.
And it, like goes black, but then it true blacks out.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it comes back in with the next
Yeah.
one. And then I'm like, that would make sense if there was additions being made, like when the stars showed up in the near
Yeah.
one of the last credit names. But the movie just does that
yeah.
at various stages as if it were a chapter in a book. And
Yes.
I don't know, I just found it satisfying. Because you don't see that in movies anymore. They're just like they give you no true period.
Right.
Except for like
it's always a
establishing
transition
shots
of
or
some
something
kind
like that
from
to
one to
break
the other.
flow.
Yeah.
And I always like that. We talked a lot about that in that's the series we did. I've already forgotten everything we've done on this show. What was the series?
Oh, True Detective.
True Detective does a
Yeah.
lot of establishing shots to break up the flow of the show.
Yes.
And this doesn't do that. It just hard cuts at like
Yeah.
moment because it's
Yeah,
this
the only
is a
time you
very-
get those are the change in daylight and the shot of the camp as a whole.
Yeah,
But it's the same shot almost every time. It's just at a different time of day.
yeah, that never broke up flow except to confirm what they were talking about the weather. So
Yes,
30 knots, and then
right.
we get an outside shot or whatever, and then that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. But structurally, I just kind of enjoyed it. It fit really well into a thing that doesn't, like, you're in a barren desert of Antarctica. There's not a whole lot
Right.
to establish about the setting.
Right, yeah,
With
Even when they quote unquote change regions,
sure.
it's the same. Like
just a
you're looking
helicopter
at the
shot.
same kind of
Yeah. So it wasn't relevant,
surroundings.
and this whole is like the whole movie is an interpersonal thing. Like it's just people talking and freaking out to one another, and how do you break that up with, you know,
with your editing,
with establishing
and
shots,
your scenery, yeah.
and they just like stuck to where they started, and they're just like, this is a point to end, and then we'll come back.
Right.
I don't know, just nice.
Like those breakups what you're talking about, where like it just kind of stops and then it just fades out.
It reminded me of MASH.
It does, yeah. You know, it actually does.
Yeah, and the way that it was shot.
I can't even think. It's been a long time since I've seen MASH. But like when it does stuff like that, it almost just like punctuates the scene because it just sort of forces your brain to stop and think about and register and really absorb what just happened and what it really
throw
means.
A new thing at you.
Yeah, because the story or the movie doesn't really hold your hand in the sense where like they're explaining and over-explaining to you what's going on. Like you actually kind of have to fill in the gaps, and those transition moments kind of serve that purpose a little bit to help you like kind of catch up, so to speak, to like understand the gravity of what's happening here and here and here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing I like to speak on, that idea where, you know, hand-holding versus not. We talk about this probably every episode, but I don't want a movie that hand-holds me, even if it's complicated. That's why I really like Cloud Atlas a lot, because it doesn't. It just goes, this is complicated, but here we go. And then it just goes. Yeah. And I really like that movie a lot, and some people don't, because they want the whole hand-holding in that context.
That was one of the big criticisms about that, was like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, you weren't paying attention enough then, because it was all there. They gave you everything, and then some.
Yeah, and, well, that's the kind of movie, if you blink, you know,
that is true.
You maybe miss something that's irrelevant.
Yeah, I love it when they over-explain it to you because they didn't actually explain anything at all in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, they've got to have. There's like the 10-minute sequence at the end. It's like, here's everything that happened.
It's like Star Wars scroll at the beginning. Where you're just like, here's what happened before now, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's like when I watched Prometheus, and I'm like, what's going on here and here? Like, oh, we're doing this now. Oh, okay. It's like, what's even happening with any of this other stuff that we just stopped talking about or never even, like, talked about at all? And then, like, at the end, like, someone says something, it's like, oh, is that what that's about? Is that what it is? Oh, okay. You know, I guess I've already paid and it's already almost over, so I guess I'm sane, you know?
Paid. Yeah. So I definitely enjoyed that aspect of the movie, as always. But to your point, I think those pauses weren't, I got to process what's actually happening. It's so ludicrous that this is like new to me as a viewer. Like for me, obviously I've seen shit that's crazier than this, more complicated than these concepts.
Right.
So those pauses were more for the emotional implication of the scenes, and not for like, all right, here's your chance to study up on like the lore we're presenting. That was never what those were. And that was also a breath of fresh air. Usually those pauses are those moments where the scene explains something or whatever is for like you to help understand how this world we're viewing works. And that's super apparent in this movie and is never questioned. And I never was like, how does this stuff work? Like at any point.
Yeah.
Right.
But those pauses were like nice for the implication of what was just said or what was just done, as opposed to here's how the world works.
Yeah, they give you a feeling rather than any sort of anecdote. Yeah.
And that's cool. And a lot of movies don't do that at all.
Right.
And if they do, it's really ham-fisted and like, like
very.
Wasn't this emotional? Stare at her cry or what? You know, it's like, oh sure.
Yeah, this is definitely a more elegant way, even though like we're literally just talking about a scene ending. Exactly. You know, like nothing special is happening. It's just like, okay, he said a thing, and now screen's black. You know,
it's like a movie made for the viewers in that respect, as opposed to like, you know.
Do you understand her sadness? All the tears are in this bucket. It's halfway full. Let's, you know, do you get it?
Now we have a measurement we can define sadness by for the rest of this movie.
Right.
A half bucket full.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really like that part about it, and it seems super minor and like something that you maybe don't notice as the movie keeps going, but really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it.
Cool.
Otherwise, I thought like the cinematography was great. Like a lot of the choices in the shots. There's a lot of like, and this is old school too, but there's a lot of longer shots in this.
Yes.
Which is always great when you can, you know, plan your scenes to be successful in that setting. Like a lot of, you know, just really long shots for what could be really negligible stuff. And I don't know. It's just nice. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say negative about cinematography or the acting was good.
Yeah.
Never got broken out of it by some silly stuff. Everything felt really real.
Well, except for the the alien. That
was the realest part.
wasn't.
So real. Yeah, no, just the acting job. I mean, like,
Yeah.
they felt like real people as opposed to,
Yeah,
really fake.
Yes, yeah, they feel like people that if I was stuck in that situation, this is a group of characters that I totally would believe is there hanging out, like doing their job.
And they also all have their own personality
very
too.
much so, yeah.
It comes out maybe a little strong, but like it does give the impression that like these are all their own people. Like it
Right.
doesn't like, oh, here's blonde number 1 and she will die first, and blonde number
Right,
2
yeah.
will see it at the last minute and then she'll run, and then we think she's okay, and then oh no, she tripped and now she's dead too, and she screamed the same way that the other one did, and
the
they
same soundbite.
Yeah.
and the boyfriends all look the same, and they're both the stars on the team. And I'm being very anti-prep right now, but I mean, you get my point.
For sure, yeah. It's always nice to see, like, characters that are almost inconsequential become fleshed out, and then at some, like, even if it's like a short time, become important.
Yeah.
And then it just feels good that they're important now, because
Yeah.
they're not just a no-name who has one line at die.
Yeah, they're not throwaway
Yeah,
characters.
they
that
did a
just are
really good
padding.
job having 12 different people all matter at some point in this movie.
Yeah. And then, like, the ones that maybe mattered less acted well enough to, like, give me an idea of the kind of person that they are in those stages where,
Yes.
they were asked to do something, or, and
Yeah.
the whole movie is just people asking of each other, like, consciously or unconsciously,
Yeah.
to do something pretty horrific to
Yeah.
another human.
Right.
And they're, like,
Yeah.
having to come to grips with
Yeah.
that with just facial expressions and stuff like that.
Right.
And
If he
it
comes
felt
back
right.
inside and we're not with him, burn him.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
what?
my favorite one was like the guy who his stomach becomes the mouth.
Yeah.
That guy, before all that, he's like, everyone's leaving him alone with the three that are restrained at that first part, and he's just like, he just looks forlorn that he has that job now.
Yeah,
And I'm
he's
like,
like, I
this
don't
is like
wanna-
the first real scene this guy's had. Like,
Yeah.
and I know a lot about this
Who he
guy
is,
now.
yeah.
and it was
Yeah, because
great.
the only other moment you get before that is they're like, Norris, I don't think anybody would be opposed to you being in charge. And he's like, I'm not up for it.
Yeah, all of those little things.
It's like he has 2 lines in the whole movie, and that's one of them. And that tells you so much about who he is and how comfortable he is leading this group of guys. And
Yeah. Lots of good shit like that. So, but yeah, I like the movie as a movie,
Cool.
first and foremost. Yeah.
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Makes usually for better conversation about it in
Less
detail.
dogging of a movie I didn't like
Yeah.
throughout the course of the thing.
Right. So plot-wise, there's one thing that and I've expressed this to him,
Okay.
and I don't know how you'd alter some of the later stuff
To
if you got
fix
rid of it,
quote
but
unquote,
I hate that we see the ship at the beginning of the movie, like flying in, and then the title screen comes up.
Really?
Yes, I don't like it. I really, really, and I love this movie. It's in my top 3 of all time.
Yeah.
It's the one thing about this movie that I hate the most, because I love the amount of unknown about this movie, right? Like about the creature and its
just
origin
would've-
and what happens here at the Norwegian camp, and like.
Well, I think
there's-
you could actively just delete that scene and it would be fine. I don't think you have to change anything about the rest.
Yeah,
Because
I
it
don't-
doesn't, there's no reference to that scene in the movie at all.
Well, the shipbuilding.
The ship, like they find the ship
there's
in
no
the ice.
reference to that scene specifically as it happened.
Sure, no.
It's just, like, there's even dialogue about how that could have been what happened.
Right.
And the doctor,
Yeah.
I think, says it, or the...
MacReady
MacReady
actually.
says it.
MacReady
Yeah.
says it. Somebody says it, and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, so thousands of years ago, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you could just delete it,
Yeah.
and then later have the payoff of the alien element of it
Yeah.
be the site. They
See, I
the
don't
site,
even
they
like
see
that.
the
I
thing.
wish I didn't know that it was from another planet. That's my big thing. Is I want that to be a possibility, not the definitive truth. Right?
Sure.
Like
And
just
that's a personal thing for me. Like I don't know that anybody else really wants that. I've never heard
I
anybody
think out of
that
all
talked
of
to
the
this movie.
scenes, that's the weakest probably in the movie.
Yeah,
I would have been fine that the payoff was aliens at the crater scene.
sure.
Like, I don't care that it's aliens personally. Like,
well, it almost feels expected.
maybe.
Yeah, like even if we don't get the scene in the beginning, it's like, well,
Right.
how else could this thing exist? And I wish that we found the block of ice, right? And it's carved out and everything, and then they find maybe the hole in the ground where the block of ice was cut out, but we never see the ship, right?
Sure.
That would I feel like that would like just punctuate the mystery surrounding this creature even more. And
Well, I think the
is it from
interesting-
here? Is this something from our distant history? Is it from another planet? Is it from another dimension? Like we don't, I just
Yeah.
but that's a really weird personal nitpick. It's not like the
I think
movie
it
is
would-
bad without
I think it would work if you deleted every scene with the ship.
Yeah.
And then obviously you'd have to change the scene you're talking about when he's building a ship. But
Yeah.
if you deleted it all and then like cut straight to the thing where they walk up and they're looking over the hole that it got
Yeah.
cut out of or whatever,
Yeah.
everything would work up until that point. But then I think it would tip in a different direction though,
Yeah.
because then it would tip in a direction that I'm sure you would love, where it's a cult because you got the found footage of them standing around a thing and they're
Yeah.
they're discovering, and then what ends up being like a very small, in the whole scope of how do we find a thing in Antarctica, a small little rectangle
Yes.
that they found, and it's like, well, they had to have some sort of intervention, like
Yeah.
divine idea to go to this
Yeah.
place, and then that just stirs up more occult stuff than it does.
Yeah.
Well,
And
even
I'm sure that's something that you would like.
even if you cut that part out with the ship, like, and as I was watching, I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, well, how did they even know about this ship? Like, was it
Exactly.
like, how is it? It couldn't have been sticking out because I mean, they have to rappel down the ice wall
Yeah,
to
it's
even get to
super
the ship,
deep, right?
And then there's this random just cube rectangle
Well,
that's just cut out. Well, how'd they see that?
Even still, though, they had the shots in the found footage that they actually excavated the ship. It wasn't just in a hole that was perfectly
Yeah.
carved. They excavated it to some extent.
Right.
So they didn't see it. It
So-
was just snow, like it would be.
Right. So like.
It's
One
like
of
finding
them-
anything in a desert.
Yeah.
One of them must have been like those one retired guys that they're on the beach with the metal detector, and that's what they do. Like that must have been one of those guys, but his metal detector was like baller. He didn't just get it at Walmart. Like
Pretty
he
good
ordered
for
that stuff.
1982.
And I mean, it could have been the case that they discovered an anomaly in like radio frequencies or something that was like emitting some kind of a signal that caused interference for the Norwegian camp that was much closer to the
Yeah.
site and that sort of weird thing. And they're like, "What's doing this?" And they
Sure.
there's like a lot of
they're
little things that
measuring
could have just-
they do like seismic tests.
Sure.
Where they put sound into the ground or whatever. They're trying to measure.
I mean, that's not how that works, but
You know what I mean?
they put mics on the ground and wait for sound.
Yeah. No, right.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well, they
like,
had chess wizards, so I mean,
That's true.
At this point, we have to believe that the computers are
The
so
Norwegians
advanced.
probably had something even better than
Yes.
Chess Wizard.
Mega
Right.
chess wizard.
What is it? Deep Blue? They had Deep Blue already.
Yeah.
Wins every game of chess ever. But yeah, I mean, I totally happy with Aliens. I like Aliens, and
Sure.
it makes enough sense that it's like foreign of this world, and
Yeah.
like it doesn't have to be eldritch in nature for it to be eldritch.
No,
nature, yeah.
absolutely. No,
And, like,
I don't
even some-
disagree with that.
Even
That's-
some eldritch tales, they're just talking about dimensionality or
Yes.
far off in space, and
Yeah.
it's never. They're just
Uh-huh.
aliens. It's not like some weird religious thing in some stories. So
right.
yeah,
And I'm not asking
Like
for it to
gods and
be, culty or whatever. I just,
yeah.
I think mostly I just don't like the establishing shot at the very beginning of the movie. I wish that we
Yeah.
discovered the truth about it through the storytelling rather than there's an alien that went to Earth. Now we're going to find out everything that happened after
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah, and like I said, I think the payoff I would have been happy with the payoff
Yeah.
if the first sign of alien activity was the crater,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's alien shit that's going
Yeah.
on, and like, because then I have no preconceived notion about weird stuff that's about to happen.
Right.
It's just
Yeah, like when the dog starts going.
that's the first scene. It's
Yeah.
just a dog running and some guy trying
Yeah.
to shoot it.
Yeah.
and you're already like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Killing a sweet puppy with a nice smile, and then you learn stuff,
Right.
and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree that the scene's bad, but I still like the alien element
Sure.
just fine.
Yeah.
So,
And it feels more like a footnote than anything else because it's just, it's less important for the viewer than it is for them. Well, it's probably just as important for them, because for them it's just like them trying to figure something out, and you, the viewer, just like, oh, okay, yeah, we're figuring this out together. Well, I mean, I knew before you guys did. Yeah. And then, but then you're too busy getting caught up as they are, because they're like, oh my god, aliens, and then 2 seconds later, like, oh my shit, oh god, we're dying, you know, and that's all we're caring about anymore.
Yeah.
And then you forget about the alien thing until it's like, oh, they're making a ship. And then you're like, explosions. And, you know, you forget again because it's whatever.
I also think that shot living in a thing that's, like, pretty well crafted after that point is a product of its time as well. Like, you know, shit like this is the first thing of its, you know, the first one of its kind.
Yeah.
And it needs to sort of tell the audience of the 80s what's about to happen. In some context, right? Like, you can't just spring that sort of stuff up on
I suppose
people.
so.
It's like the beginning of The Hobbit, when they're like, all right, here's what hobbits are. And it's like, oh, okay, this was new when you wrote this. I get it. I need the part where I'm explained a little bit to what even the word means, since you're going to use it offhandedly. And like, and for aliens at the time, like, that was known. That was a normal thing to have an alien thing.
Yeah.
You know, and a story made about aliens, and then this was just a horror version of that.
Yeah.
You know, and
Not named Alien.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
I think it definitely lived in its time, that shot.
Yeah,
exists.
that's a good point.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think the movie's just better deleting that scene, period. Because the whole movie spends its time being something that doesn't explain itself to you except for that scene,
Right. Yeah.
for the most part.
What you're saying is that we need to get a hold of Carpenter and tell him, hey, can you re-release this? But just edit out that first scene.
Just delete it.
And just say
That's it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Because for when it came out, it was fine, but we're in 2019, and now you have to redo this for the sake of a small group of people that have already seen this movie.
A lot.
For the fans who are going to rebuy the ticket when it releases in theaters.
it's like we already paid for it, maybe once or twice. We'll pay for it again. Just
we'll
take out the
crowdsource
scene.
it. It'll be great. But yeah, other than that, I think that scene could just be gone. I don't hate any other scene. Even if some of it is a little handholdy at times, but usually it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like dialogue wise.
Yeah.
It isn't just like a guy staring directly at the camera saying things. It's you know.
Yeah.
Well, like
It's
the
the-
Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that
It's
you
always
would say to
contextual.
each other.
And, yeah.
To some extent. My little, like, there's a couple gaps I have, maybe not plot wise, but like you were saying, physics wise and like weird stuff like that. The first one was when they're inspecting the contents of the shooter at the beginning after they cap him.
Yeah.
And they find like the paperwork that they're like looking over paperwork, and they know like everything about this guy in that scene. And I was like, I don't know if they like, I had no connection of where this information came. If it was just shared knowledge that there were like, they knew of each other's outposts, but they just got there 8 weeks ago, or if this guy was just carrying papers describing who I am and why I exist.
I just always assume that, like, if you're going out into the Arctic, you're probably made aware of who else is out there, and that's just kept with your records when you go out on your expedition. Like
it's like your when found, here's who
no.
I am.
I'm
sort of.
saying
their
like that
camp.
was with them at the camp with the researchers. So they're like, okay, who else is supposed to be out here? Okay, it's these guys, and then you start looking through. It's like stuff that you. It's like when you agree to something, you know, and there's like 12 pages of crap. You don't read that, right? Like, you only read it when it becomes relevant. And for 99% of us, it's not relevant. But for the 1%, when the alien shows up, it's relevant, and you got to go back and you got to read that shit about what you signed up for.
It was mostly, there was just a gap there, and like they didn't show a scene where they were getting the paperwork. It was just next to the body, as if they found it on the body. And then I was like,
okay.
Why does this guy have this level of detail? Because he knew how many people were at that camp. Like, they were talking about really, really specific details that, like, if I was the Norwegian team, would probably keep secret, considering what I found and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because the guy's like, he's new. These guys just got here, and it's like, he's one of X. Yeah. And like, I was like, man, they just know all this stuff. This is kind of strange to me, but you know, it wasn't breaking and all. I just had that question in my head and never got it answered.
Well, and right before that is the doc's yelling at Windows like, we got to report this to somebody.
Yeah.
And he's like, nobody on this continent has talked to each other he's like, I haven't been able to talk to anybody for 2 weeks. He's like, I don't think anybody on this continent's even talked to each other.
Yeah.
So he knows there are other stations.
Absolutely.
Around.
Yeah.
So that, I imagine the logic follows that they just know.
For sure. It was just mostly that they all knew they were new.
Sure.
Knew the full count of the people. And I don't know. It was just curious. Especially considering that there was no ability for freaking out Norwegian man to, communicate with them at any stage. Obviously, he was, he had urgency and wanted the dog dead and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like, they were like, oh, there's a helicopter. This is strange. Looks Norwegian, maybe. And then the guy just starts firing, and he's got like a semi-automatic rifle with a scope, and like,
and he's a terrible shot,
and just can't hit anything except for the guy's leg.
Yeah.
And like, it's just curious. That's all.
Yeah.
I just had some very minor unanswered questions about that particular scene. I guess the other plot hole, I guess we could just talk about it now before we get into some of the bigger questions about the universe. Is the excavation scene when they go to the ship. First of all, I really enjoyed the way they handled that CG work, quote unquote, because it's like a painting.
Yeah.
It's somebody painted that.
Yes. Yeah. Looking at it closely, you can tell, but
it's great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I don't know what limitations were at the time technologically and that sort of stuff, and like how those were typically done at the time, but I just felt like it was nice. I just enjoyed it. It didn't mesh well with like real camera shots. Obviously, it stuck out, but it was I don't know. I just really liked it.
Well, and it works really
nice
well
painting.
too because it has a nice background of just pure white because you're out in the middle of the snow.
Yeah.
So I think that probably helped serve to make it not look so out of place.
It was also done very well. Like the depth of field in the painting fit perfectly into the shot.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, whoever they hired, super talented. It was cool. But plot hole wise, I just wanted to say a positive thing before I say a negative thing. They mentioned they're using thermite.
Yeah.
When they're watching found footage, and then they go on and they use like dynamite and in on all the other scenes, which is fine. But I was just thinking about the actual density of ice in Antarctica and how it would put up against thermite would be really, really well.
Yeah.
Like ice in icebergs and in Antarctica specifically is actually stronger than cold steel. So I don't know how they're thermite blasting through any of that, let alone digging a perfect fucking square out the ice.
Well, so they obviously got the thermite from the same place that the guy got the metal detector from.
Yeah. They had a supplier just up east,
Yeah.
That
the
was
OG
it.
Amazon.
Like, once you got to the scene, you saw the scope. They had to rappel into it. It was huge. And I think my pack just died.
Oh no.
What was I saying?
We were talking about thermite and how ice is.
Oh yeah, like thermite can get through it, I'm sure, because thermite's insane. But it's just the scope of it and how much they would have needed to do that.
Gosh.
And they were out there with like post drill like diggers.
Yeah.
That ain't getting through that ice.
No.
Like thermite, sure.
Yeah.
With time and a lot of it. And that was the other thing. I'm like, they would have had to have tons of thermite.
Well, and that's just it. It's like, well, that means I got to request that. And if somebody's going to ask why, and then they're like, well, you see, and then we got a whole excavation crew, like an actual like crew and governments out there and like all,
Yeah, and obviously that's not the focus of the thing.
Right. Yeah, it's just.
But,
Yeah, I guess like the only way you can really explain it away is that like either A, they went out there with that much thermite with the plan of like, well, we're just gonna blow some stuff up because we just want to find something, or like this is actually the second expedition. Like they found something and they're like, well, we can't get through. We don't have enough thermite. And then when the spring team comes by, they're like, hey, we found this thing, but we need a bunch of thermite, so we'll be back in about 12 weeks. And then they come.
And that makes sense for sure, because like when they were talking about how much footage they had to scrub through that they found, it was 9 hours of footage.
Yeah.
And that's just what they found. The place burned to the ground.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, there's more to that story.
Yeah, and vlogging wasn't a thing back then, so I can't imagine it was like every crew member was like, yes, it's day 2, and Roger's really pissing me off already.
Yeah. And you're not recording good audio out there in the windy Antarctic.
Right.
It's just visual.
Yeah.
So yeah, other than that, I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. I'm happy you found it in the hole.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how you cut that perfect rectangle. And then let alone how you pulled it out. Without disturbing any of the ice around it. It was just a perfect square.
Because you find the same tools that you found the thermite and the metal detector from the same place. They had a laser cutter, obviously, that's solar powered.
Oh, perfect.
It's still strong enough.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything else felt grounded in reality and just fine. Pretty cool. But yeah, that guy shot at the beginning. Unreal. Couldn't hit a thing with that
Well,
rifle.
Oh, man.
That is like a really big
On the
sticking
helicopter,
point.
I understand for sure. That's not an easy shot to hit.
Well, I think the other thing that's not obvious is the fact that okay, these guys came from where and what happened there, utter chaos. So that dude is probably
Shook.
super sleep deprived.
As well, yeah.
And his nerves are probably totally shot.
Yeah.
Clearly because the other guy tried diving for a friggin' grenade in the snow. So they're not thinking at their best, you know?
Yeah. And that was super apparent, obviously, for sure.
Yeah,
but
there are a couple things in this movie where you have to make a few mental gymnastics where you're kind of like, how does this even? And then you're like, okay, well maybe if you think about it this, then it makes sense. But when you first see it for the first time,
it's just really funny.
Yeah, you're either thinking about it or you're caught up enough where you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. But this is all the beginning of the movie where nothing's really happened to really grip you anyway. So of course you're gonna kind of get stuck on it because there's nothing else to think about.
Yeah.
I just found it pretty amusing. Especially that the guy got shot in the leg. That was even better. Icing on the cake there. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm pretty happy with it.
Cool. So, what do we want to dive in with the mythos of this thing?
the lore of how an organism like that would work.
Yeah, or any questions you have?
I mean, I didn't hate the ending. I guess I'll say that. The open-ended ending, right?
Okay.
I actually thought it was going to end a little differently. The moment that the drink traded hands, I thought he was going to break the drink over everybody and just make the whole situation flammable and force the aggression between the two survivors. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah.
To not have resolution in that way, because I think no matter what happens, they blow the fucking place to the sky, and then somehow they succeed and kill everybody. There's still uncertainty.
Yes.
So much happened. Is this the actual last element? There's a whole scene where the blood drops and just crawls away. That never got burned. There was no scene actively burning the blood.
Wait, from where?
When he drops the thing and he's freaking out after they successfully test it, and the blood starts going and flies away. That's never dealt with on camera as a thing. So bits and pieces of this thing would exist even if they just killed everybody.
I like the idea that the blood just kind of goes away into a closet and it's you'll never find me here. And then suddenly you hear explosions and he's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there was still no perfect information about even if they eradicated each other and burned each other, that it was a done deal.
Yeah.
They burned stuff, quote unquote, and then buried it in the snow. Did they get it off?
Yeah.
They don't know the extent of how impervious or not this thing even is.
Well, you can see
fire just seems to be working.
One of the scenes where he's handling the contaminated blood packets with his gloves, and he just flicks his hands, and it's dude, those are heavy duty gloves. They ain't coming off, man. Just take them off. You're not using those again, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of little things like that are just I don't know that it matters. Obviously, a full organism would be a more dangerous thing to deal with for the rescue team. But the idea that it could never get out and that was never a nail in the coffin.
Right.
Certainty. So it was just kind of curious that they decided not to resolve it at the personal, emotional level of removing all the characters, that sort of thing. Now, is there? I understand that there's a second movie.
It's not a sequel.
Is it a prequel?
It's yes.
Is it the Norwegians?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't like it because it explains a lot of
I've
stuff.
never seen it.
Oh. You've
I
just
don't
heard.
want to see it because I don't want it explained.
Sure.
And it's all the stuff is CG'd instead of practical effects, and Carpenter had no say in it whatsoever. So I don't know. I'm just not.
I mean,
I've
it's
seen
probably not
one
great.
scene from it on YouTube, and I
Don't you regret-
I was already unhappy seeing that. So
I was
like,
gonna say-
not that it was actually particularly bad. I'm just upset with myself for being tempted, and like now knowing the canon, quote unquote, for one of the instances of the thing in this movie.
Yeah,
Sure.
I actually remember you having that struggle, like you told me
Yeah.
about it, and like I think literally like the next day or the day after, you're like, "So I watched it," and I was like, "Why did you do that to yourself?" I wish I hadn't. And I was like, "Well, we literally had this discussion, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we said let's not do that."
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, what were you gonna say, Joe?
Oh, just about like what answers exist out there about the stuff and whether either of you know them.
You've probably actually read more about it than I have.
What?
This movie.
As far as what?
I don't know anything.
I read the book based off this movie. Well, not the book; it's a short story.
Short story, yeah.
But-
Who goes there? Yeah.
But I haven't like. The most I read was like conspiracy theory. I think is kind of a strong term, but some other guys' ideas as far as like the
Like a fan theory sort of thing?
it was basically like what I don't know.
Me. That's me.
Josh.
No, it's me. I think.
Well, it's everybody.
Hold on.
Re-micing up. Okay.
Like the career path, if you will, of the thing, as far as like who does it go to first, who does it infect, and
Oh, like the actual trajectory
in
that
what
it
order?
followed? Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't really.
The career path.
I didn't know how else to say
No,
it.
I know. That's good.
We should talk about that a little bit though too.
Yes,
What
I want to.
What the thing would do if he got a real job.
Yeah, like how he would assimilate into society once they got back from Antarctica.
That's the hardest assimilation.
Community college.
Immigration, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
how's that all look? you know?
Where is his stance politically? Like, does he lean left or right? Yeah.
So I didn't catch it during.
Okay.
I don't know that I caught anything before it, so I'm just like set the groundwork. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it seemed like
Way to lean credibility to our podcast, Joey.
hell yeah. I always say that. I'm
know.
about to spout some stuff that makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about, and then I lead it off with like maybe this isn't true.
Yeah.
Like, we're about to go into some science that I probably read or heard about one time a long time ago that I'm half remembering. But the scene with the dogs at the beginning.
Yeah.
I guess I want to talk about that too, real quick. There was a lot of ham-fisted, like, the dog, look at the dog.
Yeah.
So much dog. Isn't it happy looking? But it's all these shots are sinister. Isn't that crazy? And, like, just a whole bunch of stuff kind of like that at the very beginning. I'm like, I get it, okay? The dog is suspicious. They tried to kill it. It didn't get killed. Now it's here hanging out.
Yeah.
No one is batting an eye at it but the viewer because we've been shown 37 shots of it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's the only, but at the same time, it's the only thing to look at that point.
Sure,
'cause
but
nothing else happens.
The kinds of shots that they chose to do were characterization shots, where like this is a character who knows what it's doing, and I'm like, oh no, and like it walks down the hallway that first scene, that one of the early scenes, and it like looks in a room, it's like, nah, I don't want to be in here, and then it keeps walking, and I'm like, this is not like a dog at all, and like,
Yeah.
and then it goes and finds the first person, and that's kind of what I was gonna lead into.
Okay.
Was just that like you just see the shadow of the very first person the dog interacts with.
Yeah.
Alone, and that looks like the hair of the stoner guy.
I don't think that's who it is.
No,
I'm almost
I
positive
couldn't
it's
tell
Norris.
by the silhouette. That's why I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Heart Attack.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's a Norris because of the
Yeah.
way the hair, like,
Because the stoner guy had like a curly,
He did.
unkempt,
Yes.
right.
like
the
bush
hair
kind of
shape,
thing.
though, I would
Yeah.
say is definitely different than the silhouette in the room.
Because I also didn't. I stopped paying attention to this because I was into the movie. But there's a lot of scenes that show us where they sleep. Tons of them.
Yeah.
Pulling that alarm like 24/7, and they're all coming out in their skivvies, and they're like, I'm trying to sleep. And we get to know the perfect layout of who sleeps where. And
Oh,
we get to
that's
see
true.
the dog go to a very specific room and count the number of doors on the way there. It starts at the end of the hallway. And like, so you could totally go back and find out whose room it was and narrow
Sure.
it down. I don't know. You like, obviously, you could be totally right that it's that,
it's
person who
Norris,
just
yeah.
was in them the whole time and just waited.
But you still can't even like say for sure that that was the first person either.
True.
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
I like the theory. I don't know that
that
I
scene
fully
was just really
subscribe to it,
specific.
but yes, but yeah, I don't know if I fully subscribe to it, but I like the idea that possibly it infected. Who is it? Palmer? That he jumps up the dog.
That's Bennings.
It's Bennings. He jumps up on and licks
Starts licking at his face
as the guy is trying to shoot at him, and that's the first particle that's passed on.
Yeah.
However, I paid attention. I mean, I've seen it obviously a bunch of times, but I really paid attention this time. The dog's tongue doesn't ever touch him in the shot that we get.
Yeah.
But
No.
we know the dog is trying to lick him. So it's one of those ambiguous things like, well, maybe it did.
Yeah.
But then Bennings later on actually gets taken, or so we believe, by the mask that's left in the room that he's alone in.
Yeah.
So we don't, in this scene that we're
Speaking of which.
that we're rewatching right
Yeah.
now, you
The
listeners
movie's
at home.
currently playing silently in the background.
Yeah. So maybe he wasn't the first, but
Sure. I don't know. Yeah, it's curious. Like, because especially out of like the people who, during the like final interrogation scene with the blood testing copper wire stuff, the surprising one to me, because obviously there's a lot of ambiguousness about who's been along with who's where. We're always following one guy.
Yeah.
And whether he's with them at the time, and the shot cuts away from moments that happen, and you come back to it being a difference. There's a lot of purposeful misdirection. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. But when the stoner guy gets caught and then starts freaking out and turning,
Yeah.
that was like the more surprising one.
Yeah.
That I was like, maybe he's just been the whole time, and that was like the scene that
Oh,
the
sure,
shadow
the
silhouette
dog.
thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, there's plenty of people with curly hair, and it could have been
Yeah, well,
whoever else.
the one theory that I've read that at first I was kind of like, well, how does this work? But then the more I thought about it and the more I've seen this movie, the more it makes a lot of sense, is that that MacReady's actually been a thing this entire time.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that the blood test with the hot needle is actually just, again, more misdirection that the thing orchestrates to throw people off the trail that, because MacReady, really, once things starts happening, he becomes unusually charismatic and, becomes this leader just almost naturally.
Yeah.
And
the flamethrower suspiciously doesn't work for a while during that scene, and
he lets Norris burns a little too long to almost kind of give it enough time to get away. But then, of course, when it's still seen, he still takes care of it. And he almost looks pissed off, like, oh, I'm angry that this thing is so... It's like the anger of seeing something that you hate, but you could almost interpret it as, anger because, oh, you got caught, you jackass, now I have to kill you, which
Yeah.
lessens our chances. And then, when he goes and they tie up Blair, he's got the Smirnoff bottle. He takes a drink of it before he
then
sets it
puts
back down.
Yeah.
Same thing with Bennings. He takes a drink of that and then sets it down, and then Bennings starts drinking that too.
Yep.
yeah.
And then when they go out to the ship together, notice that you can tell that it's Norris and MacReady because you can see their face. And then there's this other guy who you don't see the face of. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Palmer. Now,
Okay.
if Norris has been infected at this point, who's to say that that's not when MacReady did get infected? Or maybe he already was.
Yeah.
Because also notice before they leave, there's this almost humorous shot of Norris running after MacReady when he says, I'm going to go up.
Yeah.
Almost too enthusiastic about following him, as if this is my chance to get him alone and infect him. And then maybe if Palmer wasn't infected by that point, now he is because of Norris's presence. But we don't know that.
Yeah.
But just the way everything kind of plays out and almost how everything seems to just work out in MacReady's favor every single time.
I mean, it definitely also plays into the idea of the final scene.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when he
drink
hands him
pass.
the bottle,
Yeah.
he laughs at the end. And there's also the theory that that bottle he hands him is not actually Jim Beam, it's just another Molotov cocktail. And he's laughing because, the theory being that if Childs is a thing, he doesn't understand that the Molotov cocktail, like what he's drinking, is just like, you know, it's not alcohol, it's a chemical. And that's why he's laughing. He's like, oh, that was my way of figuring that out. Yeah. Now, I don't know if I really buy into that, but it's just another thing that,
I mean, it's definitely a lazier design, like from the meticulous like craft that is required of filmmakers and, you know, writers of this sort of caliber for storytelling purposes. Like, that's not something that's like generally accidental. The fact that he's been specifically sharing bottles and then demands, you know, a sort of like leadership role, and that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he just falls into it really well, and you know, he's always the one with the flamethrower. He's always the one that's doing the thing, and he's always the one like, and you know, seeing him and Fuchs together, like that's another thing. Like he just shows up at Fuchs' lab, acting a little creepy, and then he walks away, and then he's like, "Oh, has anyone seen Fuchs? The power's been out for approximately an hour, and somehow I know this information, and none of you do." It's like, how do you know it was there for an hour? You're just watching, and then you just was like, "Well, maybe he fell asleep," and I'm not gonna be on high alert, even though like something bizarre is like literally taking us over.
Yeah, there's like so this movie, and I don't really know what. You know, this is when I'm going to start talking out of my ass. This is the segment of the podcast where I'm making stuff up. But I don't know, like, the idea of, like, what came first, what did this sort of thing before in film or whatever. But the idea of, like, the full cast doesn't know who to trust, and, like, that's the main element of the storytelling.
Yeah.
It, like, spawned this movie. Definitely, at least, like, spearheaded the idea that all this other media would be that. So you have video games and board games about the idea where there's a traitor amongst you, but you don't know who it is.
Right.
And that whole idea. But this movie is like pure inspiration for that kind of thing, because it even does stuff that's advisable for you to do in games like that.
Yeah.
Where you do pretend that you're, you know, that test is fake. And you throw your other friendly traitor under the bus, and you kill them in that room with the flamethrower, and so that you survive and, you know, instill trust in people. Like, moments like that exist naturally for people who've never heard of a game like that and then start to play it.
Yeah.
These are things you would do as a person, basically, if you're trying to stay undercover and you have some agency over that kind of information and who trusts who.
Yeah.
And, like, all of MacReady's actions are the way I would play a game like that. As I was, like, watching it, I'm like, okay, he's in charge first, and he's very outspoken. I'm like, I do that every time I play a game like that, whether I'm good or bad. It's just really important to establish a control over the situation early, and everyone else sort of lets him do it. And, like, so I never had an idea during the movie about, like, you know, who was infected, who wasn't. I never really spent a lot of time deciding for myself at the time. I was just going to let it tell me the story that it was telling me.
Sure, yeah.
But I think the idea that it's like chemical or the drink pass theory, I believe it to be in the drink pass concept.
Yeah. I've never really been a fan of the, this is actually a Molotov cocktail. I've never been a fan of that.
The other one's lazier, So that's really cool, and I didn't notice the drink pass thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something you really think about until, like I said, when I read that, and I was like, wait, this actually kind of makes sense. And then I rewatched it, and I was like, holy shit, it makes too much sense now. So it's pretty, that's pretty sweet. And, like, a movie that we watched in the cast right before this was The Cure for Wellness. Was that right before this, or did we watch something?
I thought
in
we
between
watched
that?
Arrival after that.
You're right.
Yeah.
Two episodes ago, we watched Cure for Wellness, and that's the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but it has a moment where you're like, "Who's the host of the thing?"
Yeah.
And, like, the end of that movie is also ambiguous in a similar fashion. Mm-hmm. But that one's more in your face about it, and this one's just like, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who do you trust?
Yeah. Just to comment on, you know, you were saying that a lot of things came from maybe this idea. I just read, I was either reading an article or had a conversation with somebody at Gen Con, Joey, about how this movie is the source material for all social deduction games that came about now.
For sure.
That this was really the first thing that ever put an ensemble cast together that had no reason to trust one another.
That's why I was surprised it took so long to make the board game.
Yeah,
Like, it's
right?
not even close to the early games that, did that.
Yeah, it's
did
30
this thing.
years later.
Yeah.
It's when they finally made one.
Yeah, and there's tons of games that have done this thing since then.
Yeah.
It's just curious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty funny. On the note where you're talking about, like, the theory that it's, him the whole time and the behavior changes for people as he secretly infects them with his beverage swap. It makes me think about, like, how the organism works. If it's like a hive mind and it's conscious of its
Other selves
without being connected to them, and if it's like a joint play, right? Like when he decides that he's just gonna out the other hosts to make sure that he's fine. Are they all independent creatures reacting to that information, or is it all a marionette play?
Right.
By one true organism? Because the idea is, I think they found one thing in the ice, right? Or maybe they just opened a capsule that had multiple molecules or multiples or whatever it was, and it infected, those people in some capacity, and then it spread from there or whatever.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because you don't actually see what they dug up.
Right.
All you find is split face, which is clearly human, unless we're supposed to be led to believe that this thing is human, which I don't think so, because or human-like in nature. Because every time you see it in the middle of changing, it looks fucked up, and I ain't seen no human ever do that shit.
It's a mass of just biomaterial.
Right.
It just wants biomaterial to make, and can like sequence DNA to make itself.
It's really gross putty. It's as if like you had putty that grew a fungus inside of it.
And you see them like skeletonized, mummified dog that it's not done with.
Yeah.
In one of the shots, it took something from it before that, and it just going back for like the skin and bones at that stage. Mm-hmm. So it's not adding or creating anything. It's just amalgamating it. And they talk about that in actual dialogue.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know if it has a true conscious form, or if it's like.
Yeah.
Or maybe it isn't the alien, and it was something the alien in that. Well, but like maybe you'd like this more, Josh. What if the actual thing that's going on is that ship crashed because it isn't controlled by that organism. That organism killed the crew of.
I've heard that theory before. And I do like that better.
Like a bioweapon, and it just got out in the ship. Maybe that's the thing 3. It keeps going back to the previous situation. It's just a bunch of aliens on a ship, and they're just like freaking out and killing each other.
Yeah, we get to watch this all over again, but on a ship in space with a different species.
And the Norwegians are like, "Oh, look at this stuff in the ice."
And it's all subtitles, like it's all just like an alien language.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
that's actually a really interesting idea. I've never thought of that.
But so it could just be kind of like that, where it doesn't actually have a true form. It just like it's like a virus that takes on forms.
Yeah, like, and you never actually find out what it actually is. Like you just you get too.
We had never talked about that before. You and I? Oh yeah. It's a theory I've heard before too that I really like.
Usually we talk about, oh hey, have you heard of this? And I'm like, no. Oh, you gotta watch it. That's usually what a lot of our conversations.
Hey, I have that conversation with him a lot now too.
Yep.
Oh man,
my answer's always no. I haven't watched it.
That's usually mine too.
Yeah. I don't watch stuff. That's what this whole cast is about. Let's go. But yeah, that could also be like what they found in the perfect square. It wasn't a body, and maybe it was.
It was a sign that says, "Please don't open."
Yeah, right. But in just an alien language.
Yeah, so they couldn't read it.
Let's open this.
Isn't this cool?
Yeah.
Can't wait to show everyone at home. Hey, what's wrong with your face?
But yeah, so I definitely like that you didn't get to see like an actual organism.
Right.
That was responsible for owning the cells that do this to other stuff, because they definitely get to the this weird sci-fi element to this show where that the doctor or the scientist's whatever role he had, his computer was just like doing calculations computers at the time just can't do.
Right.
And like it was just
Well, it came from the same place the thermite and the metal detector and all that stuff came from.
the chest
and the
thing.
laser cutter.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, it was like that whole scene where he sees the visual of it taking over a dog cell, and it like goes, "This is a dog cell." I'm like, "What future or past is this like taking place in?" Like, that's crazy. But like that idea that it starts at that molecular level makes me think it's like more like the mushrooms that exist in our world that take over ants and force them to crawl to the sun so that the fungus can grow.
Which is really dope.
Yeah, there's a number of things that do stuff like that. It isn't just that. They're all like specific. They only target this animal of this genus. They're like, yeah, we burrow into the spines of bees. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Specifically so that it will be eaten by something else.
By a bird.
There's a parasite that does that in the eye stalks of snails that makes it look like a caterpillar.
Yeah,
and it's like pulsing.
Wiggles. Yeah.
Yeah, inside their eye stalks, so that a bird will come eat the eye stalks so that it can lay its eggs inside the bird. The bird poops it out. The eggs hatch and they go into other snails' eye stalks. Or the same snail, because snails don't die when their eye stalks are ripped out, they regrow them.
Yeah.
So the same snail could live this horrible fate more than once.
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't know.
No, it doesn't. But
At some level, it doesn't know. So.
but yeah, so
But yeah, like tons of stuff exists like that already, and we've known that for a long time, and so could beg the question that like was the inspiration for the source material here.
right.
You know, so definitely cool stuff for sure. But yeah, I think I'd like the opening scene more if that was actually what was happening.
Right. Yeah.
For sure. Because then it's the misdirection. It's the red herring. It's like, oh, it's aliens. It's like, well, kind of.
Well, it's
Yeah.
super
Alien bacteria.
Super
Yeah.
alien.
Yeah.
It's like the
Saiyan
story
alien.
of the Halo series is sort of similar, where they have like this flood that just takes other organisms and controls them, but it isn't like necessarily
That's what they do?
Yeah.
Oh.
And when you're fighting them, they're always in like other bodies.
See, all I remember, because I've only played the first one, I just
Sure.
remember that like there's like a bunch of them and they all swarm your ass, and that's what I thought they did. I
But
didn't
they have
realize
a
that-
true form though, because the ones that swarm you, that's like what they look like.
Yeah.
That's the part that infects the dudes, and then you get like the complicated ones that are bloated people or bloated aliens and stuff
I
like
guess
that.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I never played any of the Halo's one-player campaigns. I've only played multiplayer.
That's fair.
Oh, well,
So, and I didn't like any of them. So
Either way, that's what happens.
okay.
And yeah, it's sort of akin to that
thought
theory
that part
or
was scary.
concept. Yeah, I remember being fucking frightened
When you're
by
watching
first
like
one.
the video playback, yeah, that scared the shit out of me.
I haven't been scared by any of the sequels in when they do the flood segment, because they all have one. Spoiler
Oh,
alert.
they do?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
great.
the same formula.
Well, you've been inoculated.
Yeah, but the first game is that's the best part of the game probably.
cool.
Anyways,
How do you feel about him recording over his thing on the tape?
Yeah, I wasn't paying close enough attention to know which part got deleted.
He said nobody trusts anybody anymore.
He deletes that part.
And then he rewinds it, listens to it again, rewinds it, and then records over it. And he's like, the only thing I can do now is wait. And then he gives his name and
Yeah,
it,
well,
so.
I couldn't follow the final message, what it became, to know what he said before that, because I was like, okay, wait, he's rewinding over stuff. Oh, I've already forgotten all of it. Oh no.
Yeah.
So I don't know what like the final message says. So I'm not sure what like the edit truly was. Obviously I know what was edited out, but like what's
Yeah.
the final thing that gets listened to, provided that survives? Which I don't know that it does.
Well, it jumps
the
from the last thing he says before he makes the edit is that he says one more thing. I think it rips through your clothes when it takes you. And then he speaks about how they found more long johns that they could have belonged to anyone.
Yeah, he's like, they could belong to anybody.
And then he pauses, and that's when he says, "No one trusts anyone."
Then he
We're all
just
very,
deletes that.
and then he says, "We're all very tired." Replays the trust part, and then edits over that. So it
Yeah.
goes from
the long
they
John
could,
statement.
yeah,
Long
they
John's
could be
to-
anybody's. All we can do now is wait. We're all very tired.
well, I think that
well,
part,
that probably gets
Yeah,
deleted
that part
too. So,
gets deleted,
so
too.
yeah, just
they
all we
belong
can
to
do now is
anybody.
wait.
All I can do is just wait.
Interesting.
yeah,
But like, if you just take the message that he deletes and the message that he deletes it with, no one trusts anymore. Now all I gotta do is just wait. it's almost like a message for himself in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So-
also like
It's kind of creepy.
covering the tracks, right? You can't let anyone who wasn't here know that you can't trust anybody. Like the idea that you can't trust
Right.
anybody can't get out
Yeah.
because I'm going to make it out of this.
Which just further
Proves,
makes credence
yeah.
for him being the thing, because if he doesn't make it out, like if he doesn't quote unquote succeed,
Yeah.
and then the rescue team does find it, even though like we don't know what else he's said, right? Because
Yeah.
he's even making a record too, so it's like, I mean, I
At
guess
what stage did we start listening to it?
well, I was more thinking like, what else has he said? Because if
Right.
we're really going to go down the train of thought that he's trying to misdirect, does he leave out all the parts about how it infects? Like, we're still
Yeah.
talking about what happened because obviously
Right.
something happened.
Well, it was also a realization too, right? Like he said a thing and then went back and deleted it instead of like knowing what was going to be said. So it's like a realization that the thing I just said is something I don't want to be out there, and then
Right.
it goes back and changes it. So I don't know that it's like I should make this message and I've scripted it.
Yeah.
More like, oh, this should yeah, okay, hold on.
Yeah. Further credence to the MacReady is a thing theory. So, because listeners at home it's still playing in the background silently. We see, Fuchs is.
that haircut right there.
We
That's the
talked about him. Fuchs being in the lab. MacReady comes in. He's kind of creepy or whatever, and then the power goes out, and then so Fuchs runs outside, finds the clothing that says
Yeah, he
MacReady, which is
the shadow figure that
Yeah.
he sees in the hallway.
and then he is burned. We find them later finding his body, assumedly
A corpse,
burned.
yeah.
And then someone else finds MacReady's ripped clothes that he found earlier, which just suggests more that
there were
MacReady.
moments between that.
Yeah, there were absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's
Because there's also the scene where they go, like, this is when like they both come back separately from that like expedition to find Glasses Boy.
yeah,
Because they find the body, which is after he finds the clothes,
yeah,
and the glasses are on the corpse,
yeah,
and then but like he goes to the light,
yeah,
but then when they're looking back at the light, they're done. The light's been turned off.
yeah.
So there's like a lot of lost time
Yes.
in that sequence, and it's like I think they say how long 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
They're like
Yep, 40 to 45 minutes, yeah.
They're dead or whatever. Got to lock up. So there's a lot like that part about the furnace, maybe
Yeah.
is subject to like exactly how it got found. 'Cause
Yeah.
we don't get to see that whole
Right.
adventure they had.
Yeah.
Because the other guy doesn't even really explain how they got separated. He doesn't have enough time.
He said I cut him loose.
Yeah, but like, that's it. We don't get to know.
Well, I think what it is that, and it's not really conveyed really well, because when you're watching this movie and you're looking outside, you can see everything really well. But
Yeah.
I think what they're trying to convey is the fact that when you're outside, especially in the dark, you can't see shit at all. So like if you
Yeah.
don't have a guideline to get back to the base,
Right.
you're boned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we as the viewer, like, we don't probably even catch that, because it's like, well, yeah, you can see it from here. Like,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
where they're going.
Yeah.
I know where we're at. Why
Yeah.
don't they? They live there. But I think that's kind of what that is, because there's certain things where, like, they're talking about, like,
So Cut Him Loose was just like a quick way to talk about how he just severed
the
the
guideline.
line.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then
Yeah.
he just left.
Yeah.
Right.
So that means that they were at the guideline,
Yeah.
not necessarily in the house
Right.
where they found the thing. So it was like on the way back, perhaps,
Yeah.
or something like that. Because
Yeah,
they talk about the
He
events
mentions
in the
them.
cabin.
He was looking.
the
MacReady's
shack.
looking around his shack. I found these clothes, and I tried to get ahead of him on the line, and I cut him loose. And that's all we know.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Speaking of.
Yeah, so I think that's just like another one of those things where it's like, when you really think about it, you're like, wait, how does this even work? But
Yeah.
again, like, this is supposed to be during a storm, right? But you don't see a storm.
Yeah.
And you see just fine. But
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to understand that they can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the shot, because we're kind of watching the scene right now, in the shot when he looks out after time has passed and the light in the shack has been turned off or dealt
Yeah.
with or whatever, the line itself along the post is still
Yeah.
intact.
Yeah.
So whatever he severed, is still unsure about the situation.
Yeah.
Because it's also curious that if that was the events that sort of played out, that MacReady doesn't super take that maliciously in any specific way towards the guy who joined him.
Yeah.
He just sort of like deals with everybody in that moment.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to be like, what the fuck,
Well,
dude, you cut me loose.
He addresses
So it's, like,
him
super
directly,
suspicious,
but he is also mad at everybody in general. But
Yeah.
once, like, freaking heart attack boy here, once he starts popping, like, again, you see him take that heroic lead where even you can see it physically when they get ushered out the door, they're hunched over and very meek looking, and he's standing very, triumphantly, like, I am in control of this situation again, lost control, but I got it again, and that's just a recurring theme with that character is that, like, getting control.
Yeah, and this scene was also pretty damning, right? Like, you get the whole, horror movie trope of the door handle jiggle.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, like, because, like, he comes back, right? He's got the evidence that's supposed to damn MacReady or whatever. But before he got in, he's like a human. He's like, God, let me in! And then the door just jiggles silently, and then they're like, don't do it. And then the window breaks. And it's like, that's alien activity right there. That, but it's him. And he's like, I'm trustworthy. Look at all this dynamite I brought with me.
I know it explodes.
Yeah.
Like humans
learned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's curious that, like, the way that everything sort of like folds storyline wise and realizations that have been given to the viewers that you just like easily stop caring about these weird things because so much starts to like snowball out of control and like and they did a good job of like supplanting trust in like one character who was like maybe not when you think about it all together. It's curious. I don't know, I found myself just like believing that everyone else thought MacReady was fine until they started to not.
Well, yeah, because he's doing all the things that a healthy human would do in that situation. So
and
of
like
course
the
you're going to
idea
go
is
along
like
with it.
it's also like it's a double layer because in that like trust that the viewer gives MacReady, an equal amount of distrust comes with every other character. So whenever they say something like, it's MacReady, you're like, it's this fucker. And like, if you're really on MacReady's side, you're like, this is fishy for you to accuse MacReady like that.
Yeah, you get duped just as hard as the rest of them do.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's a great mindfuck. This was bad if we blow up, right? That's what this scene conveys. So to further prove that he is not an alien.
Yeah.
I know that you don't want to die, so I will use threats in order to manipulate you.
I'm curious, like, the sequence of events that take place when, like, this organism takes a form of something else. What's the sequence of events that truly has to play out for this to go well? Like, to come back fully clothed.
And clean.
And, and, like, I don't know. It seems like a lot of a big ask for this being to not just come back naked. Every time that it busts out of its own clothes or whatever.
Well, it almost makes you wonder, and this is sort of crazy, but I mean, considering what this movie even is, why even bother saying that? But what if it also imitates clothing?
Right, that's what I was going to say. I was like, maybe it does that too, but like usually when they're autopsying the things that have come back dead,
it's just skin and
they've stripped them of clothes at some stage along the way. Like, so you never really get the impression that they have discovered that to be the fact, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because even MacReady says like it rips through your clothes when it takes you. So
what I was going to say was maybe that's not true. Maybe that's like another thing that's being sewn. Like, look at me, I'm in perfect clothes. Therefore, how could I have ripped out of the clothes?
Yeah, good point.
That sort of concept, and it's like it doesn't actually need to do the crazy like body horror stuff until it is threatened and wants to like infect other things actively.
Yeah.
And at a later stage, we get a scene where it does it even more cleanly when it
just puts
grabs
his hand
through the guy's face.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that. That was like a super clean infection setup there, where it was like so it's learning or something like that, or perhaps that's an example of it in use by something that's done converting. Perhaps.
Well, I mean, the scene where Bennings is being taken, like, he looks pretty naked to me. It's kind of hard to tell between the tentacles and the fluids.
Yeah, it like stripped him of his clothes.
But when he's running out there, he's fully clothed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the only thing that's wrong with him are his giant frickin', I don't know, crab hands or whatever's going on with that.
Yeah.
God, I love that scene.
This one?
The hands.
Oh, the hands.
Yeah,
it's
just like
cool.
that.
The
that
roar
just
he
like
does.
turn and he stares at you, and the sound he makes is so good.
I like the emotional implication of the first time they've like actively killed someone they know,
yeah.
like maliciously at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, Gary, the captain, comes back. He's like, "No, I've known him for 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
he just like doesn't really know what to do." And
MacReady kills him.
yeah, and it's even like it's subtle, but it's like that impact you can feel stronger because in the beginning of the movie, that guy had no reservations, just whipping out his gun, breaking a window, and killing this Norwegian he's never met.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he's shooting up the fucking place, so.
Right? Yeah, but like he had no problem blasting this a stranger through the eye.
Yeah.
And then later,
Deals
he's
with
very
a friend.
shaken.
Yeah.
You know, by the fact that his friend was just burned alive in front of him.
Well, and that's kind of a good dichotomy
Yes.
being set up there because it's like, here's a guy, he's obviously a bad guy. We killed the bad guy. Versus, this is my friend, and well, I guess he's bad guy, but I thought he my friend, but
Yeah.
he's not who he thought was.
Yeah.
You know, it just it's part of that whole like, what do you even trust because you can't even trust what you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about this scene here. We're watching the scene where MacReady tells people to wait to put the fire out.
Yeah. And Norris's head is crawling away.
That, I feel like, could give more credence to the hive mind concept. Because that sounds like,
sure.
I gotta wait for the head to get away. Because I was gonna say earlier when we were talking about one of these scenes that MacReady was the only one who didn't see the head crab crawl away.
Yeah.
And was like, he acted weird when he saw it, and he's like, oh, now I guess I'll get it. And everyone else is like, are you seeing this crab walk across?
Yeah.
And like, he doesn't see it, but the time that he's told them to wait to put the flame out is the time it takes the head to get under
Yeah.
the thing and start to metamorphosize or whatever. So it's like buying itself time at later stages to maybe get out, and then it doesn't, and it has to cover its own ass again. Like this whole scene, he's like, I guess I have to kill it now. Everyone has noticed
Yeah.
the giant head crab walking.
And
Yeah.
it's even like looking at him too, as if like,
And it stays
I
there.
guess I have to. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
we have to do this. And it's
Yeah.
funny too because before this even all happens, he calls out for Windows, grabs him, and puts him in front of him. So of course you think like, oh well, he did say he didn't want to lose track of anybody, which yeah, that could also be true, but it also could be because he wants to be able to see everybody, to see where everyone's at, and also have him be
between the crab.
Well-
so that it's like not as like they're not in a prime place to see what's going on.
well, so that like he's the closest one to the door, and everyone else is
Yeah.
in front of him. So everyone else
Yeah.
is less likely to see the escape,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he's the last one to turn and look.
Yes.
Windows and Palmer sees it,
Yeah.
and he doesn't really. And
But
it's,
he's like standing in like very much the same place.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting too because like when Palmer and Windows look, they turn to their right.
Yeah.
When MacReady looks, he's looking to the left and then
turns,
goes
like,
all the way to the
around.
right
Yeah.
to look at him.
Yeah.
It's a little strange when you think about it because it's, I don't know.
But the other scene I was going to point out to like maybe cement the idea that it's a hive mind is actually the scene that just happened, where he shoots
Clark.
Clark in the head during his like attempt to cut him up with the scalpel. He has eyes on him. That's like the one time MacReady's like got his back to somebody
Yeah.
leading up to that point. But if it's a hive mind, he's got eyes on him.
Yeah. Oh, because Palmer's looking at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he turned around perfectly, like
Yes.
cinematically, shoots him perfectly in the head.
Yeah.
Cleanest shot you ever did see, and it started facing his back to the guy. And like, sure, I get it. I get the idea that you could turn around and shoot somebody, but like that was really clean, really perfect shot.
Yeah.
Wasn't looking at him beforehand, and
Yeah.
still knew exactly what needed to be done to make the cleanest kill you've ever seen. You know.
I mean, the other part of that too is that like he's not totally back turned, like they're perpendicular to each other, and also like.
But he
he's
gets
coming,
distracted in the moment that Clark chooses to strike.
Right.
So he's like
but he's also
engaging, looking away. And
he's
then,
also
like,
right. He's also right there too. So I mean, like when he.
it just seemed a little supernatural.
No, it is absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But at the same time, you could make the argument because when he's probably literally an arm's length away by the time he pulls that gun over. So for him to make a perfect clean shot in the head, like.
The
You- I
cleanness
guess
of the
you
shot
could.
isn't necessarily like the interesting thing about it. It's the reaction time. I'm mostly
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about,
you got to have
right?
pretty damn good reflexes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the guy's a pilot comparative to like Mr. Captain who's
Mr. Dog.
Well, that
Balto-
too, but also compared to the captain whose pistol was used.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's his gun. He's the gunsmith. He shot a guy in the head, showed that he's capable with the pistol.
Yeah.
He's just a guy with the flamethrower, and he's more brutish about everything that's happened thus far. MacReady?
Well, he also seems
Yeah.
to be military too.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
captain, so we can also surmise that he has some sort of military experience.
Right, yeah. And that I get. That feels fine. It's just MacReady's ability with the weapon has never been like something that's like hyper established to be like crack shot.
Yeah, it's the only shot he makes.
Yep.
Well, besides with the rifle, but they all seem to know how to use a rifle, and there's nothing like very skill intensive going on there.
Yeah.
They're just literally shooting dogs.
Yeah.
Whereas with this,
And into the mass.
yeah,
they're
this,
just firing
as you
at
pointed
stuff.
out, is way more precise and very. If by your account, it's not even so much skill as it is just like.
It felt like precognition, and like how do you get that if not being connected to the other
Sure.
set of eyes that you control.
See, it's funny because I thought you were saying that like Clark was part of that, and that's how he knew how to shoot because he knew that Clark was coming because they orchestrated that.
No, the tied up.
Yeah, no, I got you now.
You guys ended up getting tied up. Like,
Yeah.
There was other hosts in the room,
Right.
and perhaps this test is like obviously bullshit. But there's got to be something to be said about the telepathic situation if like he can make those blood cells do a thing at will, right? Like they watched him cut himself, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. Quote unquote. So it doesn't react to his own blood. So it's a choice that's being made by the hive mind. It's got to be if it's only the one thing doing like a fantastical effect just to show that it's occurring, because those aren't connected anymore, right? That's just like blood in a jar versus whatever else.
Yeah, I don't know, Joey. I didn't go to college for this. So I can't.
Me either, buddy. But yeah, so that's kind of cool if that's the case, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the most interesting thing about this movie is all the different ways
You even
you can
see Palmer's face.
Like, here we go. I guess I have to.
Yeah, like it's not a face like because you're led to believe as a viewer, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, I guess here we go. Like,
well, because he's the
like, I
stoner,
don't-
right?
Yeah,
He's the really
exactly.
like.
I guess.
It seems like it'd be in his character to be that
to
way.
scoff at it, but
Yeah.
really, if you look at it, it's like, here we go, and yeah.
I love this scene, not just because of like some of the implications we're making, but I love the idea of being tied to a monster.
Yeah,
and then be like, oh,
I don't like the idea of being tied to a monster.
just conceptually. Obviously, I don't want to be tied to a monster.
What do you think that's all about?
Just leaps to the
The
ceiling.
leap to the ceiling.
grabs the ceiling.
It's the same thing that the dog one does too. To ascend.
The dog one grows hands that push through the ceiling. This
It also pulls itself up. It like hoists itself up, I thought.
It
a
does.
piece of it breaks off and pulls itself up through the ceiling. The rest of the mass is still there. His whole body just flies up and hits the ceiling.
I just mean the idea that like it just ascends, like it has that escape
Sure.
plan of like I have to get out, so it just automatically
Yeah.
always goes up because it's almost as if it. And this is really reaching, but it's almost as if it understands that humans can't reach high altitudes because they're physically incapable of doing it, right?
Sure.
So it's almost like that's just go up like a fly would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Catch me.
it is interesting. This scene right here is like really specific that it like walks outside to die.
Well, I think it's at
it's
this point it's
perpetuating
like
the escape
I'm
concept.
on fire. I can't stop. It's either
And then it blows up the evidence. I forgot about that. Yeah, so I was going to talk about the agility that I don't know all the names. I'm so bad with names. The guy who just turned and that was
Palmer.
tied to him?
Palmer.
He like you were talking like, leaps to the ceiling. Mm-hmm. Like he, provided that he's been that way for a long time or whatever, or maybe a short time, he's the only one who had that, I don't want to say wherewithal, but like ability to move like that.
Yeah.
Like the mass felt like it's early doing whatever it's doing, it's maybe mid metamorphosis or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't have the ability to just like fucking bail like that and just like show that much, energy in one motion. Because this thing flies up, tries to grab the ceiling, realizes that it's maybe not the easiest way out, drops down and starts to tussle like Like it's really a capable form of whatever it's trying to build, which feels super intentional and not like, obviously it's fine to like unveil us now in this way because I can fucking throw down and like just starts freaking out, and the transformation between when it starts doing that and when like Palmer starts like expanding is very short compared to all the rest of their encounters with transformation.
Yeah, we had this conversation not that long ago about how quickly things happen in that scene, and compared to all the other scenes of transformation.
Which makes me feel like he's just been that way for a long ass time.
Yeah.
Well, and he's
just hiding. He's the sleeper cell.
The flip side, though, is that like if we could also say that Norris has probably been turned for a while, but he doesn't do that, right? So it's almost as if like, kind of like how RPG classes, like all different classes have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the thing manifests in different ways.
Sure.
So like with Norris, he is, it's like almost kind of like, how do I want to describe this? Like very survival oriented, right? Like you open up his cavity, he bites your arms off. Like you burn his body, his head pops off. Like it finds ways to protect itself and to get away.
Yeah.
Palmer, on the other hand, is more of like a frontline shock trooper, where it's like, oh, you're gonna tie me up? I'm gonna display such a crazy amount of strength that I'm gonna fling myself out of this rope, and like the sheer force of like actually knocks me up into the ceiling. Because it almost seems like maybe that's what it's doing, right? Like it's just like, it's almost kind of like if I just do this with my thumb and my finger, where I just flick, it's like as if I had a booger on my thumb, like I need to get this off, and I just used way too much strength and my finger just flies off, right?
Sure. So like the difference between like kinetic energy and like potential energy. You like had it a lot of energy to store
and like
use it.
It hitting the ceiling, is it really just trying to get out of the restraint? It's not doing that for any other purpose besides that, but it has so much raw power. That's what happens.
Sure.
And that's just how the Palmer thing does it. And then maybe the MacReady thing, if MacReady is a thing, because obviously we never see him transform or anything like that. Like, he's just a smart dude. Like, he doesn't have
He's
any...
the leader of the bunch.
Yeah, like, he doesn't have any sort of, like, physical... like, the thing doesn't alter the imitation in a physical sense. It's sheerly in a strategic... Like, this is the leader. It's almost kind of like the... oh, crap. What's another good way of describing this? Like... It's the leader. His pure purpose is to lead the hive mind, if that's really how this organism works.
Or even just a group of them.
And it doesn't
sacrifice one for the cause kind of thing.
Yeah, like it doesn't need to have any sort of physical prowess. Its strength lies in its charisma and its ability to manipulate people, its quote unquote enemies and itself, and that's where all the that's where all the talent points went into. It went into the big brain.
For sure.
Palmer got all the talent points put into strength, and
I think the story implication of them not being connected via hive mind is also interesting too, because there are scenes where MacReady just sort of stumbles upon what the other ones have been doing in his time away, and then has to like on the fly react to the situation. How it best suits the overall survival of their species or group or whatever. Because if they aren't connected, he's one hell of an actor. Like having to be able to have answers to all these weird things that have been going on independent of his own strategy, if he's like the leader strategist sort of role,
and to respond organically.
Exactly, and it's fascinating. I would like to believe that it's perhaps the hive mind, because I like that idea a little bit more. But it is cool that
you could have it be like sort of a middleman, so similar to how, like, imagine a band that's been together for a long time, like say like I don't know, the Eagles, or well they're kind of not, because one of their members is dead, but
I know what you mean.
Like all those members that they've played together in and out, like night after night after night, like they're super in sync with each other. So even though they're not all the same person, and they're certainly not a hive mind, because that's not how people work, they like when they play song A, B, and C,
they have a shared goal.
They know exactly what to expect of each person on that stage, because this is the song, this is my role, this is your role. I know exactly what you're going to do because you've done it so many times. But if one of them decides to do something different, it's like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but I can roll with it because that's how in tune with each other we are.
And it's curious too, because if that's like sort of maybe how it plays out as as the new base becomes infected, that means that at some biological level, for however they operate as an organism, they were all in the dog.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is that like
they
how
all
does
shared
this?
that vessel to get to the place where they would then become. They would take on roles of some kind.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too. Is that like, so is this actually just all one thing, or is it one thing that can just like clone itself?
Sure.
Like bacteria, where it's just like, okay, there's two of us now, you know, and even though we came from one thing, we're separate now.
Yeah. So to go back really far, when the dog changes,
Yeah.
and starts to eat the dogs in the pen, Clark comes back to check on the dogs because they hear them. He hears them yelping and freaking out. So he comes back and sees the horror after unlocking the gate and looking in.
Like an idiot.
Yeah, we get our first jump scare of the husky
Yeah.
busting through and fucking bailing it.
Yeah.
Well, what's up with that whole scene? There's I remember there being a moment where another thing escapes
2 dogs escape.
and another.
The tentacles are going through the door, and he slams the door on it, and they come back.
Oh, they actually
reel.
see them reel?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say
They
I
specifically.
thought it was an
show it.
independent little scurrying thing that gets out and the camera cuts. And I was like,
he kicks it and it
no.
hits the tentacles, and they kind of reel back in. You
They
hear,
recoil.
you hear a screech.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, I'm curious about those dogs.
I was too. Yeah.
What happens to the final resting place of the ones that were let out?
Well, and we're also led to believe that some of those dogs still live for a time after that whole
exactly.
thing, because they specifically say he's killed the rest of the dogs.
Yeah, Blair killed the other dogs. Yeah.
So
So either they corralled the ones that escaped, or there were other dogs that didn't get infected and were in there.
yeah, but we don't know because they don't really.
Some amount of time had passed though.
Yes.
But there's also some confusion, specifically during that part when they're talking about the things that Blair's done. They talk about a tractor. Okay, hold up. So let's actually look at this. Killed the rest of the dogs. Okay, he did that on his own time. That's fine. The chopper. We see that happen.
We see
He
that's the
literally
last thing he
runs
does
away.
before.
The tractor. Okay, hold up. So at this point, we've only seen one tractor, and Child was just fucking in it, and it was working. So can't be that tractor. So what tractor did he mess up? So maybe that's not a tractor then, and maybe I'm just ignorant. That's not a tractor. It's something else.
Yeah, I mean they use 2 different pieces of equipment through the course of the movie after that point.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because
That could be construed maybe as a tractor.
yeah,
to the
because
layman, but
I remember watching
Bobcat
Knowles.
thing or whatever.
Yeah, Knowles takes the Bobcat and he just shoves it through the fucking wall, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, wait, that one works too. So
Yeah.
what tractor got fucked up?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're not going to use it. Why would they bother showing something they're not going to use? Because it's messed up. But that was
But
one of those
there's
things where
another
it's
thing that happens in that moment too, and I don't remember who was talking, but it's just an audio confirmation of what Blair has done. It isn't, let's go check on the tractor. There's no scene where they go check up on his activities.
Yeah.
Someone just tells them. They
Yeah,
go,
it's
yeah,
Childs.
he fucked this and this. And it's like, okay, I guess we'll just take that at face value.
Right.
And it was just sort of weird, like you say.
Well, MacReady literally tells Childs, go check this, and then he comes
Right.
back, he's like, I checked it.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, there's a scene with the tractor though. And
Yeah.
But then this other one of, I'm sure, many pieces of equipment that they have is used later.
Yeah.
So it definitely was weird. But yeah, I don't know. The dog, I just wanted to make sure nothing truly alien escaped the pen like I thought it did before I elaborated on
Yeah.
the idea
no.
of different bodies and but all sharing the dog as a host for a while. And
Yeah, for all we know, one of that Norwegian pilot that got blown the fuck up, he might have been a thing too. And he's like, I mean, I'm just flying you here. You're actually totally boned.
yeah, he's also just following the dog on purpose and making flight patterns that make it difficult for the guy to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
that's also
man.
interesting.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of I think we had the same kind of conversation with Cure for Wellness, where it was it wasn't perfectly eldritch or anything like that,
No.
but it was definitely fascinating and how humans work at that core level and
Yeah, and
situations
it touches on the otherworldly horror and, but
and the idea that they carry on and do things that like, are respective or in response to things they can't possibly understand. And
Yeah.
do their best to try to with the means that they have. And for sure. Yeah, this whole scene was also like, and everyone just get really quiet because they wanted to for some reason.
This was a scene where everybody lost their mind because they were doing fine up to this point, and then they all just like had a mental dump because like they show up. They've been hanging out like together as a tight group this whole time when they're blowing up their house. And then MacReady's like, okay, I saw this episode of Scooby-Doo where they all split up, so that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And they all go along with it, and then this motherfucker's like, oh, I think I see something, but I won't say anything. I'm just going to wander over here, like, dude.
Oh, so this is an interesting thing for another reason, too. Like, yeah, but that this scene broke the immersion a little bit because of that. I'm like, what? Are we all just wandering into the death trap now? Like,
Yeah, right.
silently, not
Yeah.
telling anybody what's going on? Like, even if I do trust MacReady at this stage, like...
Yeah. It's like that
What are
scene
we doing?
from Conan the Barbarian where, like, the fucking, like, the people were just, like, let themselves fall into a fucking snake pit, and they're like, yeah, I wanted to do this.
Yeah. So, but what I was going to say is, in this moment, if MacReady is a thing, and they aren't connected telepathically, is he also fooling them?
He's the rogue
Why is
thing.
he still acting?
Yeah.
Because he still wants to preserve himself. He wants to be the winner.
Sure, but like, if he knows that, like, it's possible that he's been taken. Like, these are scenes where he's acting for the viewer now. Like, no one's around.
Yeah.
It's curious. It's curious because he kills another one of his comrades or whatever. Or maybe they aren't like that. Maybe they are actually in direct competition with one another, and there's,
The moment it splits off.
there's meant to be one of them. And it's unfortunate that the ones who started to do it met opposition and couldn't just take the humans,
Right.
as easily as all that.
Yeah. Because I think at this point, because all the humans have been killed, right? So now it's just like, well, I want to be the winner. Like there's like the self-preservation is so strong, and the independent streak comes through no matter what, even if it's something of their own race, because they don't trust each other, I guess.
Perhaps.
Or they don't like each other, a territorial thing.
Yeah, they're inherently like, combative like that, where
Right.
like, like certain spider species, like the one that makes it is the one that eats the rest,
Yeah.
and then it lives on in a solitary life until it, has to give birth again, and the cycle repeats itself. Could just be that they're just inherently,
Definitely chaotic evil. If they're rolling D&D characters, they're definitely playing chaotic evil.
Yeah. So this whole like scene to perpetuate some like way for itself to carry on, if it won the day and MacReady's also evil, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's curious. Because there's also a moment, if MacReady is an independent thing and it's like making decisions where he is like vaguely surprised that the other guy survives.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Childs.
When he sees him, he's like vaguely surprised that that's, something that is to be considered, and now smiles when he passes the drink and is like, oh yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
Team. But like, that act of passing the drink is creating an independent being that is in direct competition with him, if that's true also. So it's very curious. This whole sequence of events is like, we got them. Maybe we can not fight and just...
Yeah.
We could still keep the ruse, turn back to people. Like, we've proven we're capable of doing that.
Right.
Maybe the flip side of it then is that the Blair thing was the one that went rogue and wouldn't play with the rest of them.
Sure.
And that's Kurt Russell's character is literally saying, as the leader, fuck you too then, because
Yeah.
you wouldn't play along with us like you were supposed to.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because
That is curious.
the
yeah.
Blair was also one that destroyed all the equipment. And then
Yeah.
obviously he was probably not infected at that point. Maybe, but probably not. But then when he's in the shed, he literally makes that ship. It's funny because like it's probably with intent that they put him into the tool shed because it has all the tools to make a ship.
Right.
And at some point there must have been like a disconnect where MacReady and Blair become rivals in that sense.
Sure.
And
So I guess there could be credence in like him turning Childs here, knowing that it's like a fresh start to gain a new ally, as opposed to it being like they're always like biologically at odds with one another or anything like that.
And the Blair thing, like, is almost, it seems like it's an amalgamation of the dog and him.
Yeah.
So is it like it became a glutton for power? And it's like you're too confused as to what you are. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe the Blair thing was trying to be the supreme being, and like it was not. It could be. You know, like we could go on and on as far as like why this and the other thing, but I
could
like
also be like a primal thing, right? Like these aren't as like hyper intelligent as perhaps we give credit for the idea of deception until they realize that is the way to survive, and then they adapt to become good at that thing. And the ones that like at least looked the part could spend the time to develop the ruse, right? Like it isn't something that they have to be perfect at convincing someone in a singular moment.
And it could also be kind of like pack mentality kind of thing where it's like, well, I want to be the leader. It's like, well, I am the leader. It's like, then we fight, you know, and MacReady wins because dynamite kills all.
Apparently,
you know, in rock, paper, scissors,
the other
gun
one
always
like
wins.
the other one's like puffing up like a pufferfish or whatever. It's like, look how big I am. And it's like, no.
Fuck you too. Yeah, because dynamite makes you bigger than what you are.
Yeah, he also like
explode.
There's also a curious moment in between that scene. He blows up Blair's monster, and it's just fine. Just rolls. He does like a cool tuck and roll.
Like, how does he get out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Is it still the same body? Is it just
taking
on the same form again? Like what's happening?
You remember in Batman Forever where he's got the cape, the thermal protection cape? And then Two-Face is like, why don't you die?
Yeah.
So they got that cape from the same place
Blair
they got the thermite.
Two-Face, probably, right? And
Two-Face looks kind of like the Blair thing, so there's obviously a connection there.
Couple of faces.
And obviously the cape came from the same place they got the thermite and the laser cutter and the heavy-duty metal
they
detector.
ordered it from like chesswizard.com or whatever. They got the
Super mega chess wizard, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, some guy just went crazy with the Visa.
The government's paying. It's
like I found this new.
Antarctica.
Found this new site. It's called Amazon. What, you mean like the jungle? No, it's a store.
That's the rescue team, the Amazon drones that are delivering them all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they need the helicopter pilots for that 2-day delivery. Got Norwegian Prime.
But yeah,
they're Swedish.
That little scene.
Hey, Sweden! I got your package.
That was funny. When he said, "Hey, Sweden, are you here?"
Yeah.
Are you here, Sweden?
Yeah. Hey, Sweden. They're Norwegian, Mac.
Second time he's told. Yeah. So good.
Who goes there?
Who's on the team of 2 that go visit the Norwegian camp? Or 3? Is it 3?
It's only 2 of them. It's
2 of them.
MacReady and Copper, the doctor.
Yeah.
The doctor.
And then when they go to the ship, it's MacReady, Norris, and who I assume is Palmer.
Yeah.
Which is the stoner.
Yeah.
Because there's also that gap when they're interacting with the charred corpse before the autopsy. And MacReady's there for the encounter of the first kind or whatever with that corpse that ends up mattering again later.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or which corpse matters again later? Because they
Split
store
face.
them. Split face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't, when there's a lot of moments when it, I guess, could have happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, that's part of the beauty of it is that they don't tell you and you're left with your thoughts on that, like how did this all happen? And it's fun because it's so open-ended without being loosey-goosey where it's like
it's all considered.
It's a lot of different things could have happened one way or the other.
I also like how fresh the burnt corpse was they brought back.
Oh yeah. It's steaming like a bag of broccoli from the microwave when they bring it back.
It exists at fucking -40. And that thing, like...
outside.
And they found it not burning.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ.
Dude, it's whatever they put in that thermite, apparently.
Yeah,
whatever they would...
Thermite would have just eradicated the body. No bonfire situation.
This is diet thermite.
Oh, got it. Yeah, Norwegian diet
Thermite zero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crack open a cold one.
Yeah.
No sugar.
Well.
No, I enjoyed it. It was very cool.
Sweet. I'm happy.
Definitely obvious why it's like stayed the test of time.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah. It's not without its seams, I suppose, but
I mean,
not much that came out of this era of
I was going to say
cinematography is perfect like that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, movies made
just
today.
in general,
a
yeah.
lot of movies made today are worse than this. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
easily.
Like Prometheus.
That's one that we might be watching for the show.
Well, have fun with
It's
that.
curious.
Yeah.
It's gonna be curious because I have a weird perspective on the movie that I need to I gotta rewatch it. It'll be the one that I kind of bring to him if I don't like reprove myself wrong after watching it. I'm like, okay, no, this is rough or whatever. There's like an interesting take
Yeah.
that I'll like lead with before we play, and then we'll see if it sort of that
if
kind of
it-
thing.
Okay, sure.
And then if it doesn't, then obviously it's like, well, we just watched Prometheus. We're not gonna record. You know, it's-
Welcome to our podcast. We watched a movie that we really wish we hadn't again.
because we, and it sounds like you're of the camp that Josh is, but we started to talk about it for some reason or another, and I am of the few people I've ever encountered that like the movie, because a lot of people don't
I like some things about it.
yeah, but like
I think
the parts that people don't like about it are parts that I like about it because of like this overall view that I've like obtained by kind of like, because I watched it knowing people didn't like it. I didn't watch it I didn't watch it in theaters or anything like that. I watched it after it got released. So there was tons of critical review about why it was shit or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my buddy, who was like way into the Alien series, informed me that it was bad and was like, it's crap. Here's why. I've seen it. I think it's still crap. And I'm like, okay, I still want to watch it. I still want to know. And then we both walked away with it a little bit changed about that opinion after discussion. And then I tried to find people's opinions that weren't, this is dog shit. I want to hear what people maybe critically, even if they maybe didn't like it overall, had to say about it. And like I found a small niche of people who kind of put it as like one of the best movies they've ever seen, next to other stuff that I already knew I loved intensely. And like I was like, is it? And like so we watched it a couple more times, and I sort of like changed my opinion about it. It became a movie that I actually owned, which is a very, very small collection. So I want to reaffirm that if I wasn't just a dumb child, you know, a much younger version of myself, and like established a thing, and then kind of come back to it and see if it fits our thing, or at least to just watch it and show.
Man, he hasn't presented any of his theories on it to me.
No.
So
I don't want to start talking about it until I fully remember it, because it's been a while and I put it down and haven't watched it since. So I watched a part of the second one. And I didn't like the scene that I saw too much, so I didn't go into the rest of it.
See, I like Covenant way more than
It's
Prometheus.
cool as shit. The scene I saw was really cool, but like what it was implying about how I'm sure the rest of the story sort of revolved around, I wasn't a huge fan. It's the scene where Android Boy leads them down into the to the nest or whatever, and then like the alpha thing, or like the albino demon gets him or whatever. He's white, right?
Yeah, you haven't seen Covenant yet.
Nope,
so.
and I wasn't planning on it because that's how much I didn't like Prometheus.
Yeah, I just didn't like the implication on the importance of characters in that scene, and I was like, I don't want the rest of the movie to be like hinging on, or even this important moment that I watched to hinge on this. Is like, it felt lazy, because it was hinging on like the idea of a rampant AI, right? Like being like, this is clearly the right thing we should be doing. And like, I'm like, that's not exciting.
That sounds very similar to a movie that
He's just like feeding the
came out 40 or 50 years ago. He's talking about the rampant AI, like this is the way we're supposed to do. That just sounds exactly like original
Hitchcock
Alien.
or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's also Hitchcock, or what's the movie?
20... Kubrick.
2001.
Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't watched
Rampant
that.
AI.
Yeah. Can't let you do that.
Hal. Or Dave.
Well,
Dave is the alien?
No.
Or the AI, I mean? Or is Dave the dude?
Hal is the AI.
Hal's the AI.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Whatever. I'll watch that someday.
On that note,
I'll rewatch Prometheus. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
It might just be a wash.
Yeah.
I'll let you know if you're interested, and I find like a strong case if you want to partake.
No, nope. I don't need to see that movie ever again.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks for listening. That about wraps up, I think, all our major thoughts.
Yeah.
Didn't ask too many like larger than life questions, but that's okay. It's a lot of fun to talk about and analyze.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for asking me. I wasn't doing anything.
Cool.
The A quick note before we completely close. I do appreciate where we've come with practical effects in body horror.
Yeah.
With things like annihilations and like
Yeah.
some of the random ones that still do it and not rely on CG.
Yeah.
Because this still shows its age, but it's also just very cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. I just wanted to say that because we usually get stuck on that where we're like, it's so cool that this thing was gross and oozing.
Right.
And it's like,
yeah.
okay, move it along. Let's talk about the real topics.
Right. Yeah. We didn't really touch on that too much this time, but yeah, it was really cool that it was oozing and gross.
There, we said it. Are you happy? Okay.
All right. Until next time, don't stare too long.
Or do.